Imagine today's billionaires showing off their huge mansions, private islands, and luxury compounds. Some of those homes look massive, but even the wildest modern estates cannot compete with one king's unbelievable dream from the 1700s. In the middle of southern Italy, an 18th century monarch decided he wanted something bigger, richer, and more powerful than anything anyone had ever built before. That king was King Charles III of Naples, and the palace he imagined would defy all expectations of size, beauty, and wealth. He wanted a building with more than 1,000 rooms, each decorated with art so detailed and breathtaking that it would drain the talents of Europe's most gifted painters, sculptors, and craftsmen. He wanted gardens so large they felt like whole worlds of their own, stretching into the distance with different landscapes, fountains, and water features. Some areas were so big they seemed to have their own climates. He even wanted a throne room so impressive that one glance at it would remind visitors of his absolute power. To achieve this dream, King Charles III hired the famous architect Luigi Vanvitelli, a master who had already worked on one of the most important churches on earth, St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. If there was any architect who could create something truly extraordinary, it was Vanvitelli. And so, Europe's largest royal palace, the Palace of Caserta, was born. But even though the palace opened with glory, power, and unimaginable beauty, its story would take a turn that no one expected. For decades, it sat forgotten and crumbling, nearly destroyed by time, weather, and war. Its fountains dried up, its walls cracked, and entire wings were sealed off like abandoned caves. What was once a symbol of royal greatness almost became a ruined ghost. Then, centuries later, the palace rose again, restored, revived, and welcomed back into the world as one of Italy's greatest treasures. This is the full story of how Europe's grandest palace went from magnificent to abandoned, and finally, to reborn. The King with a Giant Dream. In 1751, the rolling hills of southern Italy buzzed with plans that were bigger than life. King Charles III, ruler of Naples, wanted to prove that his kingdom was powerful enough to compete with the greatest cities of Europe. At the time, Rome and its papal palace were seen as symbols of authority and splendor. To outshine them, Charles didn't just want a palace. He wanted the grandest palace the continent had ever seen. So the king called upon Luigi Vanvitelli, a genius architect who understood how to mix art, engineering, and imagination. Vanvitelli didn't merely design a building, he designed a world, a place that combined power, beauty, government, and nature in one enormous complex. How big was the palace? The numbers almost sound made up. 47,000 square meters of floor space, 1,200 rooms, 1,742 windows, 34 enormous staircases. Even the palace's front facade seemed almost impossible. A long, straight stretch of architecture measuring 247 meters across. It was like a wall of royal authority rising from the earth. Once construction began in 1752, thousands of workers labored day and night for years. Sculptors shaped marble, painters climbed scaffolding to create huge ceiling frescoes. Stonecutters built walls and staircases that had to look perfect from every angle. The palace's interiors were meant to make visitors gasp, and that is exactly what they did. Massive frescoes covered ceilings with scenes of glory and history, columns carved from rare stone-lined hallways. And the throne room, the heart of royal ceremonies, gleamed with marble and gold, a space built to make guests feel the king's authority the moment they stepped inside. A palace beyond architecture, but Vanvitelli didn't stop with the buildings. He imagined a vast landscape that would be just as impressive. Behind the palace stretched enormous gardens filled with fountains, statues, forests, and wide lawns. The centerpiece was the massive water system, a series of cascades and fountains fed by the Carolino Aqueduct, an engineering marvel that carried water from over 40 kilometers away. Every detail, from the angle of the hills to the flow of water, was planned to create harmony between nature and architecture. The gardens were more than decoration. They were symbols of control and beauty, showing that the king commanded both land and water with grace and power. But King Charles III also wanted the palace to serve a practical purpose. He included plans for a silk factory right on the palace grounds. This wasn't a hobby or a decoration. It was a strategic decision meant to boost the local economy. By producing fine textiles, the palace would help make the region wealthier and more respected. In this way, the Palace of Caserta was not just a royal home. It was a political tool, an economic machine, and a cultural masterpiece all at once. The death of the architect and a son's promise. Sadly, Luigi Vanvitelli did not live to see the palace finished. He died in 1773, leaving behind a vision only partly completed. But his son, Carlo Vanvitelli, stepped in to continue the work. Carlo respected his father's ideas, following the original plans closely, while guiding the project to the next stage. By the late 1770s, even though the palace was not fully complete, it had already become a symbol of human creativity and ambition. People who visited felt overwhelmed by its scale and beauty. It stood as a reminder of what people can build when they have enough vision, money, and determination. But history was about to change dramatically. As Europe moved into the 19th century, wars, political shifts, and new rulers reshaped the continent. And with those changes, the palace began a long journey through reinvention, decline, destruction, and eventually, a stunning rebirth. As the 1800s approached, the Palace of Caserta stood like a sleeping giant. It had been built to show royal power, but Europe was entering a new and uncertain age. Wars, revolutions, and new rulers were about to shake the continent, and the palace would not escape these changes. What once symbolized strength and unity would soon become a mirror for shifting political tides. During this time, Naples came under the influence of the Murat family, connected to Napoleon Bonaparte. When the French took control, everything changed, including the palace's design, decorations, and purpose. The new rulers wanted the palace to reflect their power instead of the old Bourbon dynasty. This meant many rooms were redesigned, repainted, or completely reimagined. One of the most important transformations took place in the Grand Alexander Room, originally meant to serve as an impressive reception hall. Under French rule, this enormous space was turned into a temporary throne room, meant to show off the authority of the new regime. The room was filled with symbols of pride and military success, sending a clear visual message. A new power now ruled Naples. To decorate the walls, two skilled painters, Heinrich Schmidt and Rudolf Surlant, created huge frescoes showing important battles during the Napoleonic era. These paintings showed scenes like the capture of Capri and the Battle of Mileto. Visitors entering the room would immediately see these victories displayed on the walls, reminding them of the strength and reach of the new government. But the painters weren't the only artists involved. Sculptors such as Domenico Masucci, Claudio Monti, and the French artist Bertrand Dufour designed detailed stucco designs called bas-reliefs. These artworks showed stories from the life of Joachim Murat, Napoleon's brother-in-law, who became King of Naples. By covering the walls with stories of Murat's success, the palace became more than a home. It became a political advertisement. Two new masterpieces, the halls of Astria and Mars. While the French controlled Naples, two of the palace's greatest rooms were completed, the Hall of Astria and the Hall of Mars. These rooms blended two major artistic styles, neoclassical and empire, creating a look that combined old-world beauty with modern royal power. The architect behind this part of the project was Antonio de Simone, who followed the evolving tastes of Europe. The neoclassical style drew inspiration from ancient Rome and Greece, columns, balanced proportions, and clean lines. The empire style, inspired by Napoleon, added symbols of victory, eagles, stars, and military motifs. Together, these choices created rooms that felt both timeless and bold, a perfect reflection of a palace meant to impress kings, generals, diplomats, and rulers from across the world. The throne room, a space built to take your breath away. In 1845, decades after the palace's early construction, Caserta finally gained what many consider its most magnificent room, the new throne room. This hall stretched an incredible 40 meters long, with walls lined by 28 tall Corinthian columns made from shining stone. These columns created a rhythm across the room, guiding your eye toward the place where the throne once stood. The room's greatest decorative masterpiece came a year earlier, in 1844, when artist Gennaro Maldarelli painted an enormous ceiling fresco. This painting showed the moment when the first stone of the palace was laid, a powerful image connecting the room back to the beginning of King Charles III's dream. Anyone standing under that giant fresco would feel part of a story much bigger than themselves. The throne room quickly became one of the most important spaces in the building, used for ceremonies, meetings, and royal events. It was the heart of the palace's political and artistic identity. The English Garden, a natural wonderland. While the palace's interior showed the power of architecture and art, the gardens outside demonstrated the beauty of nature shaped by human creativity. One of the most beautiful additions came from Queen Maria Carolina, who wanted a modern-style outdoor space, similar to the fashionable English gardens of the time. She hired John Andrew Grafer, a skilled English gardener, and worked with Carlo Vanvitelli, Luigi's son, to design a 24-hectare landscape that resembled a natural paradise. It included rolling hills, meadows filled with exotic plants, flowing streams and hidden ponds, winding paths, small bridges, a network of canals, quiet spaces for reflection. To make the garden even more impressive, rare plants from all over the world were brought to Caserta. Orangeries and greenhouses allowed delicate species to grow, even those from warm tropical climates. Over time, the English garden became known as one of the finest botanical displays in Italy. Unification of Italy. A palace. Without a purpose. In 1861, everything changed again. Italy officially unified into one nation, with its new capital set in Rome. This meant the royal families who once lived in Caserta no longer used the palace as their main residence. Without the constant activity of a royal court, the buildings and gardens began to fall into decline. Gardens that once needed dozens of gardeners to maintain now grew wild. Exotic flowers and plants began dying. The once powerful aqueduct that fed the fountains slowly fell into disrepair. Water stopped flowing through the miles of cascades, leaving the fountains quiet and still. Inside, the situation was just as sad. Rooms that once glowed with color and light now sat empty and dusty. Yes, frescoes began to fade. Stucco decorations cracked. Marble floors dulled with age. Without royal funds or attention, even a palace this large could not take care of itself. Bit by bit, the Palace of Caserta, once an unstoppable symbol of power, started slipping into silence. World War II. A palace at the center of conflict. The darkest moment in the palace's history came during World War II. Between 1943 and 1945, the palace was taken over by the Allied forces and used as headquarters for their Mediterranean operations. Overnight, this royal home became a center of military decisions. Elegant rooms turned into offices filled with maps, radios, and military papers. Boots echoed on floors once stepped on by kings and queens. The palace became a place where strategy, not ceremony, ruled. The most historic moment came on April 29, 1945, when German forces in Italy signed their unconditional surrender within the palace walls. This marked the beginning of the end of the war in Italy, but the palace paid a huge price. Bombs damaged its structure. Looters stole furniture, art, and decorations. Sculptures and carved fixtures disappeared. Paintings, yet were ruined. Entire areas became unsafe. After the war, Italy struggled to rebuild its cities, homes, and infrastructure. A massive royal palace, especially one no longer used by royalty, was not a priority. So, wings were abandoned, doors boarded shut, and rooms left to rot. For a while, it seemed like the Palace of Caserta might never come back. The years after World War II were some of the hardest the Palace of Caserta had ever faced. Italy was left devastated by conflict. Cities needed to be rebuilt, roads repaired, families rehoused, and industries restarted. In a country struggling to survive, caring for a massive royal palace seemed impossible. For decades, the enormous structure stood in a strange state of half-life, not fully destroyed, but far from alive. Many of its rooms remained shut for years, sealed in darkness to protect what little remained inside. The once bright frescoes grew pale under layers of dust. Decorative stucco cracked away from walls. Wooden doors warped from moisture, and entire corridors felt frozen in time. The palace's gardens suffered even more. Without the teams of gardeners who once cared for every tree and flower bed, nature quickly reclaimed the land. Grass grew high across the pathways. Vines crawled over stone walls. Carefully designed views disappeared behind dense vegetation. Water that once flowed freely through fountains and cascades dried up, leaving basins cracked and silent. The Grand Carolino Aqueduct, which had once been an engineering marvel, fell into neglect. Without maintenance, it could no longer supply water to the palace's fountains. The entire water system, once one of the palace's most stunning features, slipped into ruin. As the decades passed, the palace became a place people whispered about, a sleeping giant that had lost its purpose. Locals knew it was important, but repairs were too expensive, and the building was simply too large to maintain without enormous funding. Many of its treasures remained locked away in dark rooms, protected from sunlight, but also forgotten. Visitors could only see a small part of the complex, and even those areas showed the heavy signs of time and weather. The palace felt like a memory of something great, slowly fading away. But then, at the end of the 20th century, everything changed. A turning point, global recognition, and hope. In 1997, the world finally took notice again. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, better known as UNESCO, officially named the Palace of Caserta a World Heritage Site. This was more than a title. It was a declaration that the palace was not just an Italian treasure, but a masterpiece belonging to all of humanity. With this recognition came attention, funding, and a new sense of responsibility. People began to understand that losing Caserta would mean losing a piece of global history. The UNESCO designation created momentum. Historians, architects, conservationists, and government officials started working together to develop a long-term plan to save the palace. They wanted to preserve everything: the architecture, the gardens, the paintings, the fountains, and even the stories carried inside its walls. But the challenge ahead was enormous. The palace covered tens of thousands of square meters. Restoring it would require patience, money, and precision. The real breakthrough came in the early 2000s. In 2001, a large-scale restoration project officially began, targeting the palace from top to bottom. Experts inspected every part of the structure. They evaluated the condition of frescoes, marble columns, wooden staircases, and carved ceilings. Engineers studied the aqueduct system. Gardeners analyzed the soil and surviving plant species. Nothing was overlooked. Every detail, no matter how small, mattered. Restoring Caserta was like bringing a giant back to life, one limb at a time. The restoration begins. A giant that needed everything. One of the first major tasks was addressing the palace's massive exterior. The structure contained more than 74,000 square meters of facade, much of which had been damaged by weather, pollution, and wartime explosions. Cleaning and repairing these walls took patience. Workers used delicate tools to protect the original materials. They removed dirt and soot, filled in cracks, and repaired areas where pieces of stone had broken away. Little by little, the palace's exterior began to regain its original pale glow. Inside, the work was even more delicate. The palace's three most celebrated rooms, the Hall of Mars, the Hall of Astria, and the throne room, all required detailed restoration. Conservators gently cleaned frescoes that had turned dull over time. Colors that once seemed lost slowly returned. Gold details, which had faded into brown shadows, were carefully re-gilded to shine again. Sculptures damaged by war were reconstructed. Crumbling stucco work was rebuilt by hand by craftsmen trained in traditional methods. The grand staircase, one of the palace's most iconic features, was restored with special attention. The stone steps were polished. Decorative elements were repaired. Light once again streamed down the stairwell, illuminating the long, sweeping curve of the staircase as it had in the 1700s. Visitors who entered the palace after this renovation felt the same awe people felt centuries earlier. Breathing life, back into the gardens. The gardens, which had turned into something resembling a forest, required massive effort. Teams of horticultural experts studied old maps, drawings, and notes written by the palace's original designers. They wanted to restore the gardens to their historical appearance while protecting the plants that had survived. Dead trees were removed and replaced. Flower beds were replanted with species that once grew there centuries earlier. The wide lawns were restored, pathways were cleared and rebuilt, garden ponds were dredged and cleaned, and most importantly, a long-term plan was created to restore the palace's original water system. This meant repairing sections of the historic Carolino Aqueduct, a structure so large and complex that restoring it would take many years. But the vision was clear. One day, the fountains and cascades of Caserta would once again flow with water, just as they had in the 18th century. A new kind of palace, culture, art, and global attention. As the restoration continued, the palace slowly transformed into a living cultural center. Instead of being only a monument of the past, it became a place where modern and historical art could exist side by side. Exhibitions were organized inside the restored royal apartments, where ancient frescoes looked down on contemporary works. Visitors who came to see the palace's traditional architecture were often surprised to find new artistic voices filling the spaces with color, sound, and ideas. The palace grounds also hosted musical festivals and performances. During the summer, the courtyards filled with the sound of operas, orchestras, and world-famous performers. Concerts by artists like Roberto Bolle, Zubin Mehta, and Placido Domingo brought new life into the vast spaces that had once felt forgotten. The palace became a symbol of revival, proof that even a building nearly lost to time could find new purpose. In recent years, visitor numbers have grown rapidly. In 1 month of 2021 alone, nearly 80,000 people entered the palace, walking through its grand halls and exploring its enormous gardens. The Palace of Caserta also earned a prestigious 3rd star in the Michelin Green Guide to southern Italy, placing it among the top cultural destinations in the region alongside ancient sites like Pompeii. Thanks to decades of restoration, effort, and passion, the palace is no longer a forgotten relic. It is once again a beacon of beauty, culture, and history. By the time the 21st century arrived, the Palace of Caserta had already survived the rise and fall of kingdoms, foreign invasions, natural decay, and a world war. But now, with the help of modern restoration teams, historians, engineers, and cultural leaders, it was beginning to shine again. Yet the palace's revival wasn't only due to restoration work. Something unexpected started to happen. Something that would introduce the palace to millions of people who had never even heard its name before. Hollywood discovered Caserta. For filmmakers, the palace was a dream come true. It was enormous, elegant, and full of dramatic spaces, with long corridors, marble staircases, and royal rooms that looked too perfect to be real. Directors and production studios began scouting the palace as a filming location. Soon, they realized that Caserta wasn't just beautiful, it could also act as other places. One of the earliest and most famous uses of the palace came from the Star Wars franchise. When Star Wars Episode Splendor, The Phantom Menace, and Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, were filmed, the Palace of Caserta became the Royal Naboo Palace, home of Queen Amidala, and one of the most elegant locations in the entire series. Movie crews transformed the palace's grand staircases and shining hallways into futuristic chambers, creating scenes that millions of fans around the world would remember. When people watched those movies, they saw long halls filled with bright light, polished marble floors reflecting golden patterns, and soaring ceilings decorated with classical designs. They didn't realize that these were not digital sets or fantasy creations. They were real places, filmed inside an actual European palace that had been built in the 1700s. Hollywood's interest didn't stop with Star Wars. Other major films soon followed. Mission Impossible 3 used parts of the palace to create dramatic action scenes and luxurious backdrops. Angels and Demons, based on the popular novel by Dan Brown, also filmed inside the palace, using its monumental architecture to represent the wealth and power of European institutions. Every time a new movie used the palace as a filming location, more people around the world discovered its beauty. Some viewers were shocked to learn that the palace wasn't a set. It was a real place they could actually visit. This new wave of global attention helped bring even more visitors to Caserta, and with them came support, publicity, and a deeper appreciation for the palace's history. But film crews weren't the only ones filling the palace halls. As restoration continued, Caserta became a vibrant cultural center. Concerts filled its open courtyards. Art exhibits filled its restored apartments. Scholars visited to study its architecture and history, and tourists from around the world wandered through its endless rooms and gardens, sharing photos and stories on social media, helping the palace reach even more people. Still, behind all the excitement, a quiet and steady effort continued, fully restoring the enormous palace to its original glory. The restoration teams faced one of their biggest challenges when they began working on the historic Carolina Aqueduct. This aqueduct had once fed the palace's magnificent fountains and waterfalls, creating a dramatic visual effect that stretched for kilometers. Over the centuries, lack of maintenance had left the aqueduct cracked, blocked, and unable to function. Restoring it required a mix of old techniques and modern engineering. Workers had to clear ancient channels, stabilize weakened stone, rebuild damaged sections, and ensure that water could once again flow smoothly through the long system. As the repairs moved forward, hopes grew that one day the fountains and cascades would return to their original strength. For visitors, the idea of water rushing through the long garden axis, from the palace all the way to the distant waterfall, became a symbol of Caserta's rebirth. While this work was happening outdoors, more projects continued inside the palace. Rooms that had been sealed for decades were slowly opened, cleaned, and restored. Some spaces still held original furniture that had been covered and protected long ago. Others contained fragments of destroyed decorations that needed careful rebuilding. Climatologists worked to create stable temperatures so that paintings and fabrics would not deteriorate again. Electricians rewired entire sections to make the palace safe for modern use without disturbing the historical interiors. All of this took time, years and years of patient, methodical work. But every improvement made a difference. Every cleaned hallway, every polished marble surface, every restored painting. Each one added to the sense that Caserta was awakening again after more than a century of silence. Visitors arriving in the 2020s could hardly believe that the palace had once been nearly abandoned. Grand rooms glowed with color again. The massive staircase sparkled under natural light. Gardens stretched wide and green, shaped by human hands but enriched by centuries of nature. And throughout the palace, exhibitions, performances, and guided tours allowed people to experience its history in new ways. The palace had regained not only its physical beauty, but also its purpose. It now served as a bridge between centuries, connecting the enormous ambitions of the 18th century with the creativity and curiosity of the modern world. People who walked its halls felt connected to kings, queens, soldiers, gardeners, architects, artists, filmmakers, and thousands of workers who had shaped the palace's story over hundreds of years. By restoring the Palace of Caserta, Italy had done something extraordinary. It had given new life to a monument that once seemed lost. A place that had nearly crumbled into ruins was now alive with music, art, study, tourism, and celebration. And its story was not finished yet, because restoration work continued every year, bringing the palace closer and closer to the brilliance it once held. Displayed when King Charles III first dared to imagine it. As the Palace of Caserta entered the modern age, something remarkable became clear. The building was no longer just a silent witness to history. It had become a living classroom, a cultural powerhouse, and a place where the past and present met face to face. Visitors walking through its marble halls no longer felt like they were simply touring an old royal residence. Instead, they felt like they were stepping into a story that was still unfolding. The palace's revival brought with it a powerful reminder that preserving history is not only about saving stones, paintings, or old furniture. It is about saving knowledge, identity, and human achievement. The Palace of Caserta became a symbol of what can happen when a society chooses to protect its heritage rather than allow it to crumble into silence. One of the most important effects of Caserta's rebirth was the way it promoted education. Schools from across Italy began organizing trips to the palace. Students walked through the grand staircase, gazed up at the towering frescoes, and explored rooms once used by kings and queens. Teachers explained how the palace showed the ambitions of the 18th century, how architecture could express power, and how art could communicate identity. Many students said they had never imagined such a place existed. Some even said the palace inspired them to study architecture, history, or art. Universities also began conducting research at Caserta. Scholars studied the building's construction methods, tracing how Luigi Vanvitelli solved engineering challenges that were incredibly complex for the 1700s. Others studied the palace's paintings, examining pigments, brushstrokes, and symbolism. Music historians explored the palace's theater, imagining how operas once echoed through the royal auditorium. Every part of the palace had something to teach, from the carved marble fireplaces to the centuries-old garden pathways. But learning didn't stop with students and scholars. Visitors from all over the world began attending guided tours, where experts explained the palace's design, its political meaning, and its past struggles. These tours helped people understand that the palace was not simply a place of beauty. It was a fortress of ideas about power, art, nature, and the role of kings in shaping society. As visitors traveled down the long central garden axis, following the straight line of fountains toward the distant waterfall, they felt the same awe that people felt in the 1700s. The symmetry, the scale, and the harmony all worked together to create a feeling of wonder that words could barely describe. The palace also became a center for cultural events. Seasonal festivals drew thousands of people, the courtyards filled with orchestras, dance companies, and opera singers. On some evenings, warm golden lights illuminated the palace walls, making the enormous facade glow like a piece of living art. Music drifted through the air, combining with the smell of summer flowers and the soft sound of footsteps on stone. These events brought together locals and tourists in a shared celebration of culture, turning Caserta into a gathering place filled with joy and creativity. Meanwhile, restoration teams continued pushing forward. Their goal was not simply to patch up damaged areas, but to fully honor the palace's original character. In rooms where frescoes had faded, conservators used careful methods to bring back lost colors. In areas where wooden floors had warped, they replaced boards using the same type of wood that the original builders used. In the gardens, new trees were planted to match the species from old botanical records. Every improvement demanded patience, because the team wanted to ensure that the work remained faithful to history. The Carolino Aqueduct remained one of the most challenging projects, but also one of the most meaningful. Restoring it required a massive commitment, since the aqueduct stretched for kilometers across the countryside. Engineers inspected each section, fixing cracks and strengthening weakened areas. The dream was to once again see water flowing down the long garden cascade, sparkling under the sunlight, just as it had when King Charles III first walked the grounds. For many people, the return of this water would symbolize the palace's complete rebirth, a moment when past glory and modern restoration finally came together. While restoration moved forward, new technology helped protect the palace. Climate control systems were installed to keep humidity levels stable. This was important because moisture could destroy paintings, fabrics, and wooden furniture. Security systems were updated to protect against theft or vandalism. Digital mapping tools allowed experts to track which areas needed the most attention. And high-resolution photography helped record the palace's condition, creating a visual archive owing for future generations. As these improvements continued, Caserta's reputation grew. It was no longer just a beautiful palace. It was one of the most significant cultural landmarks in Europe. Guidebooks praised its architecture, gardens, and restoration work. Travel magazines featured the palace in lists of must-see European destinations. Cultural organizations awarded it recognition for heritage preservation. The palace began attracting people from countries far beyond Europe, including travelers from Asia, America, and the Middle East. Many visitors said they first learned about the palace because of movies filmed there. Others discovered it through social media, where photos of its marble halls and grand staircases went viral. Every visitor added something to the palace's new story. Families walked through the gardens together. Couples admired the views from the terraces. Artists sketched the architecture. Photographers captured the palace in morning light, afternoon shadow, and evening gold. The palace became a living canvas for the world to enjoy. The Palace of Caserta's transformation into a global cultural destination showed that beauty and history are powerful forces. They connect people, they inspire curiosity, they encourage respect for the past, and they remind us that no matter how much the world changes, certain creations deserve to remain standing, not only because of the people who built them, but because of what they represent. Today, Caserta stands proudly as a monument reborn. It is no longer a forgotten giant hidden behind locked doors. It is a thriving center of art, learning, and discovery. And each year, more people leave the palace carrying new memories and a deeper appreciation for the extraordinary effort that saved it. As restoration continued into the 2020s, the Palace of Caserta reached a moment no one from the 19th or 20th century would have believed possible. A building once on the edge of ruin had transformed into a proud symbol of cultural rebirth. Visitors arriving at the palace in modern times no longer saw a fading monument. They saw a place bursting with energy, a place where history lived, breathed, and welcomed every traveler with a story worth remembering. Walking through the grand entrance today, tourists immediately feel the weight of centuries beneath their feet. The polished stone floors echo the footsteps of kings, queens, soldiers, architects, scholars, and artists who all passed through before them. Sunlight pours down the magnificent staircase, highlighting the careful restoration work that returned its marble glow. When visitors look up, they see frescoes so bright and detailed that it is hard to believe they were once nearly lost under layers of dust and neglect. Tour guides now explain each space with pride, describing how Luigi Vanvitelli imagined every corridor, every window, and every fountain as part of a grand master plan. They share stories of how King Charles III wanted a palace that rivaled the greatest in Europe, a place that would announce the strength of Naples to the entire world. Visitors learn about old traditions and celebrations, hearing how the palace once hosted balls, ceremonies, and royal gatherings filled with music and candlelight. But the most emotional parts of the palace's story come from the years of struggle. People are often surprised to learn that World War II brought bomb damage, looting, and chaos that nearly destroyed the palace forever. They react with disbelief when they hear that some rooms sat abandoned for decades, locked away like forgotten chapters in history. Imagining an empty drift of dust in a room that once held a king's throne feels almost unreal. Yet it happened, proof that even the grandest places can fall silent. Today, those same rooms stand restored, shining in ways their creators once hoped for. The throne room glows once again, with its soaring ceiling fresco proudly showing the moment the palace's first stone was laid. The Hall of Mars, the Hall of Astria, and the great ceremonial chambers all look like they have awakened from a long sleep. Visitors can feel the careful work that went into every detail. Work done by modern hands honoring the dreams of the past. Outside, the gardens stretch wide and green, shaped by centuries of love and reconstruction. The English garden feels like a world of its own, with winding paths, quiet ponds, and rare plants collected from faraway countries. The long avenue of fountains, once dry and cracked, now slowly returns to life as restoration of the Carolino Aqueduct continues. Engineers and historians work side by side, determined to restore the palace's original water system so the cascading fountains can flow once more in full glory. When visitors walk down the long garden axis toward the distant waterfall, they experience something powerful, a feeling that combines nature, history, architecture, and imagination into one breathtaking moment. It is the same feeling people had in the 1700s when the palace first opened. Even after centuries of change, that sense of wonder remains. The palace's revival has also helped nearby communities. Tourism has brought new jobs, restored businesses, and created a cultural identity that locals proudly share with visitors. Caserta is no longer just a town near Naples. It is a global destination, a place that travelers write about, photograph, and remember long after they return home. The palace has also become a reminder of resilience. Many people find meaning in its story because it mirrors something universal. The idea that even when something becomes damaged, forgotten, or overlooked, it can still be restored. It can still rise again. The palace shows that history doesn't have to fade. It can be rescued, celebrated, and shared with new generations. As the world changes, the Palace of Caserta continues to evolve. Modern concerts fill its courtyards with music. Art exhibitions allow visitors to see new creativity alongside centuries-old masterpieces. Students sit on the palace steps taking notes, sketching, and dreaming. Families take photos by the fountains. Travelers stand in awe beneath the glass chandeliers. Filmmakers continue to use the palace as a backdrop for new stories, adding fresh layers to its legacy. And through all of this, one truth becomes clear. The Palace of Caserta is more than a building. It is a bridge connecting the dreams of the past with the hopes of the future. It is a reminder that beauty matters, history matters, and preserving our shared culture is worth the effort. Today, when the sun sets over the palace's enormous facade, its warm light touches the rooftops, reflects on the windows, and highlights the incredible journey the building has taken. From royal pride to abandonment, from devastation to rebirth, Caserta's story proves that even the most damaged treasures can be saved when people choose to believe in their value. The Palace of Caserta now stands fully alive, a shining example of human creativity, determination, and passion. It tells the world that history does not belong to the past alone. It belongs to everyone who continues to care for it. And so, the palace endures. It stands proudly in southern Italy, inviting people from all corners of the world to walk its halls, explore its gardens, and experience its story. A place once nearly lost has become a masterpiece reborn, a dream rebuilt, restored, and ready for generations to come. As modern visitors leave the palace, many glance back one last time. They look at the arches, the windows, the towers, and the endless gardens, realizing they have witnessed something rare. A building that survived the rise and fall of empires, the violence of war, the emptiness of neglect, and the hope of restoration. And in that moment, they understand the true message of the Palace of Caserta. Great dreams never truly die. They simply wait to be rediscovered. When most people picture San Francisco, they think of postcard-perfect scenes, the sharp hills stacked with houses, the clang of cable cars rolling down the tracks, or the bright orange shape of the Golden Gate Bridge rising out of the fog. But long before these landmarks became symbols of the city, there was another attraction that captured the imagination of thousands. It was a place so unusual, so huge, and so full of life that it seemed almost impossible to exist. This wonder was called the Sutro Baths. Long ago, the Sutro Baths were celebrated as the largest indoor swimming complex in the entire world. It wasn't just a set of pools, it was a massive palace made of glass, iron, and water. The building stretched across the coastline like a gleaming jewel, reflecting sunlight and the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean. For ordinary people, workers, families, and children, this place felt like stepping into another world. It offered fun, excitement, and a break from the hard struggles of everyday life. Today, almost nothing remains of that once glorious dream. When visitors walk along the coast near the Cliff House, they only see broken concrete, silent staircases, and piles of moss-covered stones. The sound of waves echoes through empty spaces where thousands once laughed, splashed, and cheered. The ruins look mysterious and lonely, as if they are holding on to old secrets. People often stop and ask the same question: how could something so massive and so beloved disappear so completely? To understand the answer, we have to travel back more than a century and a half, to a time filled with excitement, danger, and unbelievable change. It was the mid-1800s, during the wild rush for California gold, when people from all over the world arrived hoping to become rich overnight. And among those dreamers was a man whose imagination was even bigger than his ambition: Adolf Heinrich Joseph Sutro, the arrival of a dreamer. In the year 1850, a ship sailed into California carrying a young German immigrant named Adolf Sutro. Unlike many others on the boat, he wasn't a miner dreaming of gold, nor a gambler hoping for fast luck. Adolf Sutro, born in what is now Germany, had studied mining engineering and business. He understood machines, tunnels, and ventilation systems. He had big ideas, and he believed he could use his talent to solve problems instead of digging for treasure. While thousands of hopeful miners rushed into the mountains with picks and shovels, Sutro didn't follow them. Instead, he observed the mining world from a different angle. He noticed the danger these workers faced each day. Mines in the 1800s were not safe. Tunnels often flooded with water. Poisonous gases built up underground. Explosions and fires happened without warning. When miners were trapped below the surface, they had almost no hope of escape. Sutro knew this situation needed a change, and he believed he had the answer. During the 1860s, he traveled to Nevada, home of the Comstock Lode, one of the richest silver deposits in the world. There, he presented a bold idea. He wanted to dig a tunnel deep underground to drain water, clear deadly gases, and provide fresh air for miners. This engineering project would run for thousands of feet, cutting through solid rock and earth. Many people thought Sutro's plan was ridiculous, expensive, and impossible. But Sutro didn't give up. He spent years trying to convince investors to support his project. They didn't listen, until disaster struck. In 1869, an explosion and fire ripped through the Yellow Jacket mine, killing 35 miners. The tragedy shocked the region and exposed how dangerous the mines truly were. Suddenly, Sutro's tunnel didn't seem like a fantasy. It seemed like a lifeline. Investors began to pay attention. Workers believed in the project. Slowly, the pieces came together. Sutro created the Sutro Tunnel Company and raised money by selling shares. Construction began, and for years, workers dug, blasted, and carved their way through darkness. It was dangerous, slow, and full of setbacks, but Sutro never stopped pushing forward. Finally, in 1878, the incredible tunnel was finished. It stretched 3,600 feet, stood 10 feet wide, and reached nearly 1,600 feet below the surface. For miners, this tunnel changed everything. It helped make mining safer and allowed deeper digging. Sutro's stubborn determination had paid off, and he became a wealthy man, far wealthier than the average miner who spent years risking his life underground. But wealth wasn't Sutro's final goal. Unlike many rich men of the time, he didn't want to hide his success or build a mansion only for himself. He wanted to use his money to create something the public could enjoy, something that would bring happiness, learning, and beauty to ordinary people. A city builder. With a vision, when Adolf Sutro returned to San Francisco in the 1880s, he didn't settle into a quiet life. Instead, he began buying land across the city. So much land that some people claimed he eventually owned 1/12 of all San Francisco. But his most famous piece of property sat on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. On 20 acres of land, high above where the waves smashed into the rocks, he created Sutro Heights, a public garden unlike anything the city had ever seen. The garden was filled with exotic plants, colorful flowers, detailed statues, and paths that twisted and curved through peaceful greenery. There was even a lookout tower that visitors could climb to see panoramic views of the ocean, the shoreline, and the faraway city skyline. What made Sutro different from other wealthy landowners was simple. He believed ordinary people deserved the same access to beauty as the rich. Instead of keeping his gardens private, he opened them to everyone for a small and affordable fee. Working-class families who lived in crowded neighborhoods could wander through peaceful gardens and feel like they were in a completely different world. This idea, sharing luxury with the public, became the heart of Sutro's legacy. In 1883, he purchased the iconic Cliff House, a restaurant perched dramatically on the edge of the cliffs. After a fire destroyed part of it, he rebuilt the structure into an even grander building. But even the Cliff House wasn't the masterpiece Sutro dreamed of. Down below the cliffs, hidden in a rocky cove, he saw something no one else did. While others saw a difficult piece of land battered by waves, Sutro saw potential. At first, he imagined creating an aquarium, a place where people could see ocean creatures up close. But the idea kept growing. Soon the aquarium turned into a plan for a promenade. Then it became the idea for a hotel. And eventually it transformed into something extraordinary, a gigantic public bathing palace inspired by the ancient Roman baths, the birth of a monument. Public bathhouses were becoming popular in America and Europe at the time. Some were simple pools, while others were more elegant. But most of them catered mainly to wealthy citizens. Adolf Sutro did not want that. His bathhouse would welcome everyone, rich or poor, local or traveler, young or old. In 1888, Sutro announced a design competition, offering $500, a large sum then, to the winning architects. The winners were C.J. Colley and Emil S. Lemmy, the same architects who had helped him rebuild the second Cliff House. What they designed, guided by Sutro's imagination, was extraordinary. It was not just a pool, it was a monument, a palace, an engineering miracle built where land and water constantly battled each other. Building the impossible palace. The construction of the Sutro baths began in the early 1890s, and for most people in San Francisco, the project looked unbelievable. The Cove, where Adolf Sutro wanted to place his enormous glass palace, wasn't peaceful or convenient. It was a wild, rocky pocket of coastline, constantly pounded by ocean waves. High tides swept in with tremendous force. Low tides left behind slippery seaweed and piles of stones. Few engineers of the time would have dared to build anything there, but Adolf Sutro was not like other men. He had solved engineering challenges deep beneath the earth. He had built a tunnel that people had once called impossible. Controlling the Pacific Ocean, at least in one small cove, didn't scare him. In fact, it excited him. To bring his vision to life, Sutro and his workers designed an elaborate underground system to manage the ocean water. They carved passageways and tunnels into the rock beneath the cliffs. These tunnels were engineered so that waves could rush in during high tide and naturally fill the pools with millions of gallons of fresh salt water. And when the tides dropped too low, they used giant pumps that moved 6,000 gallons of water per minute to keep the pools full. This wasn't just clever engineering. This was genius. Without these systems, the baths would have been impossible. The ocean itself became the heart of the building, filling, refreshing, and cleaning the pools. Still, the challenges didn't stop there. The foundation required enormous strength, since the building had to withstand the constant pounding of waves and storms. Workers brought in tons of rock to stabilize the structure. They even built tracks inside a nearby cave, the same cave people hike near today, to move stone from local quarries. Cart after cart rolled through the darkness, delivering the materials needed to create the massive base. Then came the breakwater, a huge wall built of rock and concrete that stood between the baths and the open ocean. Without it, one big wave could have torn the structure apart. But with it, the building had a fighting chance against the Pacific's power. Even so, the breakwater had to be repaired again and again. Nature never stopped testing Sutro's creation. And then finally, the main building rose, a glass palace by the sea. When the structure was completed, people could hardly believe their eyes. Covering 3 acres, an enormous size for any building at the time, the Sutro baths were like nothing America had ever seen. The roof was made of glass. Massive iron arches lifted sheets of glass high into the air so sunlight could pour inside. When the sun hit the structure just right, the entire building shimmered like crystal. From far away, it looked like a dream rising out of the ocean mist. Inside, the light filtered through the glass, bouncing off the pools and dancing across the walls. The whole place felt warm, bright, and full of life, even when the weather outside was chilly or foggy. People walking inside for the first time often stopped in complete amazement. The sound of waves echoed faintly from beneath the structure. The salty smell of the ocean blended with the warm air from the heated pools. It felt like a magical combination of nature and human invention, and the details were stunning. There were 7 swimming pools, arranged in steps that flowed naturally toward the ocean. 6 pools were filled with filtered salt water, each at a different temperature. Some were cool and refreshing, others were pleasantly warm, and one single pool was filled with fresh water for people who preferred a different kind of swim. Around the pools, dozens of staircases twisted and climbed up to balconies and walkways. The floors gleamed. The metal beams overhead arched gracefully, like the inside of a giant ship. And everywhere you went, people were laughing, splashing, running, or simply sitting and soaking in the atmosphere. The Sutro baths were not just big, they were breathtaking. A playground for everyone. Inside the Sutro baths, the possibilities seemed endless. There were diving boards that launched people into the air, water slides curved into the pools, trapezes hung above the water, where brave swimmers could swing and drop into the pool below. Some pools even had floating platforms and trampolines. For visitors who didn't want to swim, there was just as much to enjoy. A wide promenade wrapped around the pools, giving people a perfect place to stroll and people watch. Families walked arm in arm, teenagers gathered with their friends, and older adults sat on benches enjoying the warmth inside the enormous glass building. And then there was the museum, perhaps the most surprising part of all. Adolf Sutro had traveled around the world, and everywhere he went, he collected fascinating objects. Instead of keeping them in a private mansion, he put them on display in the baths. The museum showcased Egyptian mummies, stuffed animals, rare plants, unusual stones, scientific specimens, and cultural artifacts from dozens of places. Visitors could spend hours wandering the exhibits before hopping into a pool. Besides the museum, Sutro included 500 private dressing rooms, a 2,700-seat amphitheater for competitions and special events, club rooms for large gatherings, restaurants that served meals so visitors could stay all day. It was part swimming center, part museum, part amusement hall, and part community gathering space. And the best part? It was affordable. Sutro believed deeply in making luxury available to everyone, not just the rich. The streetcar ride to the baths cost 5 cents, and admission to swim cost 25 cents. That was low enough for almost anyone to afford, even families who struggled with money. On opening day in 1896, the Sutro baths were packed with thousands of excited visitors. Newspapers described the scene with glowing praise. For working families who lived in crowded neighborhoods or tough living conditions, the baths were like entering a magical palace. Everything felt grand, clean, and full of opportunity. Many families said visiting the Sutro baths became one of the happiest memories of their childhoods. In interviews, Adolf Sutro often said that even the baths of ancient Rome, famous for their luxury, could not compare to what he had created. And in many ways, he was right. No other bathhouse in the world combined engineering, art, science, recreation, and community the way Sutro's did. To Sutro, this wasn't simply entertainment. It was, as he called it, health-giving amusement. A place where bodies became stronger, minds became brighter, and spirits became lighter. He knew a sudden change after Sutro's death, but something changed very quickly. In 1898, only 2 years after the Sutro baths opened, Adolf Sutro passed away. The dreamer who had imagined the impossible fought through years of challenges and spent his personal fortune to give the public a place of wonder was suddenly gone. His heirs inherited the baths, the cliff house, the gardens, and the land. But they did not have his passion, his engineering mind, or his ability to run such a massive and expensive operation. Keeping the baths open became a struggle almost immediately. The building was huge. Everything required constant repair. The furnaces that heated the pools, the pumps that moved salt water, the glass that cracked in storms, the wood and metal that wore out over time. The ocean never rested, and that meant neither could the owners. To attract guests and make money, Sutro's family organized events. They hosted swimming competitions, circus-style acts, and even beauty pageants. From time to time, it worked. In 1913 and 1914, the baths gained national attention when champion swimmers from Hawaii broke world records there. For a short while, the spotlight returned, but problems waited around the corner. World War I changed the nation. People struggled through difficult times, and recreation wasn't a priority. Then came the Great Depression in the 1930s, one of the darkest financial periods in American history. Families barely had enough money for basic needs, and leisure activities were cut from their budgets. The Sutro baths, once packed with thousands, now stood partly empty, and the costs continued to rise. The building wasn't just large, it was too large. No matter how many visitors came, it never seemed to bring in enough money to cover its enormous expenses. The baths were slowly becoming a financial burden, and this was only the beginning of their long decline. Reinvention, struggle, and a fight against time. As the 1930s arrived, the Sutro Baths stood at a crossroads. The once brilliant palace of glass and water was struggling to stay alive. The building was still massive and impressive, but its glory was fading. The constant repairs, the cost of heating the pools, and the never-ending war with the ocean were draining the owner's finances. If something didn't change soon, the baths would shut down completely. It was during this difficult period that Adolf G. Sutro, the grandson of Adolf Sutro, stepped forward with a bold plan. He wanted to revive the baths by transforming them into something new, something that could capture the imagination of modern visitors. He believed that people wanted more than just swimming pools. They wanted entertainment, excitement, and a variety of activities. So the younger Sutro began an ambitious remodeling project, a new vision turning baths into an amusement haven. The renovations started with removing several of the original pools. These saltwater pools had been the heart of the complex, but they required constant pumping, heating, and cleaning. Instead of trying to maintain them, Adolf G. Sutro replaced them with new attractions, basketball courts, dance floors, and spaces for different events. He even added an indoor beach, complete with sand, right inside the building. Workers trucked in loads of sand from real beaches and spread it across a large section of the floor. Visitors could walk barefoot across the warm sand without ever stepping outside. This addition was one of the most unusual features the baths ever saw, and many people came just to experience the novelty. Adolf G. Sutro's idea was simple but clever. If swimming alone wasn't enough to bring crowds, then variety might. He wanted to offer something for everyone, no matter their age or interests. The remodeled building now offered basketball games, dancing areas, exhibitions and special events, the famous indoor beach, public gatherings and festivals. He hoped this fresh wave of entertainment would breathe life back into the enormous structure. For a short time, his plan seemed to work. Attendance picked up. Families returned. Events drew crowds. People who lived in San Francisco during the 1930s and 1940s remembered the baths not just as a swimming center, but as a lively social space filled with music, games, and community gatherings. But underneath the excitement, the problems had not disappeared. They were only hidden for a while. A building too big to save. The biggest issue of all was simply the size of the Sutro baths. The building was almost unbelievably large. Just heating the water for the pools took an enormous amount of energy. Maintaining the glass roof required constant attention. The ocean continued to batter the walls, threatening the structure during every major storm. The furnaces, pipes, and pumps were aging and needed constant repair. Operating the complex cost far more money than it earned. Even though the new attractions brought in more people, the income still couldn't keep up with the expenses. And as time went on, fewer families came. The country faced wars, economic challenges, and major cultural changes. The younger generation found new forms of entertainment. Ice skating rinks, movie theaters, and nightclubs grew in popularity. The glowing magic of the Sutro baths began to feel old-fashioned. By 1952, the situation was dire. The owners could barely keep the doors open. The structure was worn down. The salt water had corroded metal beams. Parts of the building required expensive repairs. The heating systems were breaking. The floors needed work. Everything demanded attention, and the money simply wasn't there. It seemed as though the Sutro baths, once a symbol of hope, imagination, and joy, were about to fade away forever. And then, at the last possible moment, a lifeline appeared. A new owner, a new hope. In 1952, the baths were purchased by George Whitney, a well-known businessman who owned the famous Playland amusement park nearby and the Cliff House. Whitney was an energetic, optimistic entrepreneur who believed entertainment should be accessible and fun. He had a talent for turning old attractions into successful businesses. Whitney had a bold idea to save the Sutro baths. Instead of trying to keep the pools running, which had proven far too expensive, he converted the remaining space into a giant ice skating rink. Ice rinks were becoming very trendy in the 1950s, and Whitney believed the baths could thrive if they offered something fresh and appealing. And he was right. The new ice rink became a hit. Families came for weekend skating. Couples went for date nights. Teenagers flocked there with friends. Skaters glided across the ice to bright music echoing throughout the huge building. For a while, it felt as though the Sutro Baths had come back to life. But this revival didn't last forever. The slow decline. When George Whitney died, his family inherited his properties. Unlike Whitney, they were not eager to operate large entertainment complexes. The land around the baths had become incredibly valuable, and real estate developers were eager to purchase it. One by one, the Whitneys sold pieces of the property. Soon, developers began considering big plans for the site. They imagined high-rise condominiums, shopping centers, and modern buildings that would bring in huge profits. The ruins of the baths were old-fashioned, costly, and difficult to manage. In the eyes of the new owners, the historic structure didn't fit the future they wanted. By the early 1960s, the decision had been made. The Sutro Baths would be demolished. The iconic glass palace, the grand pools, and the historic structure would be torn down. In their place, modern developments would rise. The era of the Sutro Baths was coming to a close. But before demolition could begin, something unexpected and devastating happened. Fire on the Pacific. On June 26, 1966, a massive fire broke out inside the Sutro Baths. Flames spread quickly through the wooden portions of the old structure. The fire grew hotter and hotter until it exploded through the building. The metal beams twisted, the glass shattered, smoke billowed across the coastline. Crowds gathered on nearby cliffs, watching as the once glorious palace burned. Within hours, the building was destroyed. The fire was later declared arson, meaning someone had set it on purpose. Many people suspected that it had been burned to clear the land more easily or to collect insurance money, but no one was ever arrested and no one ever confessed. To this day, the cause of the fire remains a mystery, adding to the haunting history of the site. What had once been the largest indoor swimming complex in the world, the pride of Adolf Sutro, was now nothing more than a pile of smoldering ruins. The developers gave up. The land sat empty. The ocean wind blew across the remains, eroding them piece by piece. Rain filled the old pools, crabs scuttled across the stones. What had been a lively, joyful place was now quiet and ghostly. The glory was gone. But the story was not over. Ruins, rediscovery, and the legacy of a lost dream. In the years after the devastating fire of 1966, the Sutro Baths no longer resembled the shimmering palace they once were. Without its glass roof, without the warm glow of sunlight entering the vast interior, and without laughter echoing through its halls, the building slowly faded into the landscape. The tides rolled in and out of the remains, washing over broken concrete and rusted metal. The ocean, which had once been the lifeblood of the baths, now helped erase them. Developers who once planned grand construction projects lost interest after the fire. The idea of building condominiums or a shopping center on the unstable, ocean-beaten cliffs became too risky, and the cost of clearing the ruins was far more expensive than anyone wanted to pay. Over time, the charred pieces of the building were left untouched, allowing the sea and weather to continue their slow work. Visitors who wandered to the site found an eerie, almost otherworldly scene. Staircases that led nowhere, dark pools filled with green water, and the skeleton-like remains of walls standing at crooked angles. What had once been one of the most joyful places in San Francisco now looked like a forgotten world, swallowed by the coast. And yet, strangely, the ruins attracted people. Lots of people. A landscape reclaimed by nature. As the years passed, nature began to weave itself through the ruins. Moss grew thick on the stones. Wild plants sprouted from cracks in the cement. Birds perched on the old beams. Waves crashed rhythmically into the lower pools, filling them with foamy water every time the tide rose. The rusted metal beams, once bright and strong, now curved and bent like silent sculptures. For many visitors, the site felt like stepping into a real-life time capsule, the remains of a massive dream slowly being reclaimed by the natural world. On foggy days, the mist drifted between the broken foundations, giving the ruins a mysterious and almost magical atmosphere. Some people described it as peaceful, others found it haunting. Children climbed along the edges of the pools. Teenagers explored the tunnels and rocky pathways. Artists, photographers, and writers were drawn to the site because of its dramatic, moody beauty. Every piece of concrete seemed to tell a story about a glory that once existed. Every fallen beam whispered memories of the thousands who had walked through the baths during its prime. Even though the grand structure was gone, the presence of Adolf Sutro's imagination still lingered in the air. A place worth saving. By the late 1970s, the ruins of the Sutro Baths had become a beloved landmark, not because of their size or luxury, but because of what they represented: the rise and fall of a dream, the power of nature, and the history of San Francisco itself. Recognizing the importance of the site, the National Park Service stepped in. In 1980, the land surrounding the baths was purchased and added to the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, a huge network of parks and protected lands along the coast. This decision ensured that the remains of the Sutro Baths would be preserved instead of being bulldozed or developed. This was a turning point in the bath story. After decades of decline, the site was finally protected. Workers cleared dangerous debris, stabilized walking paths, and created safe areas for visitors to explore. The ruins became part of a larger trail system connected to the Land's End area and the historic Cliff House. Artifacts from the baths, especially items from Sutro's museum collection, were moved to San Francisco State University, where they are now stored, studied, and preserved. Some pieces, like ancient artworks and geological specimens, had survived fires and storms, making them valuable windows into both history and Sutro's personal interests. Today, the site is open year-round, and anyone can wander through the remains of the baths at their own pace, walking through the ghost of a wonder. Modern visitors who explore the Sutro Baths often describe the experience as both beautiful and emotional. The moment you step onto the pathway overlooking the ruins, the view can take your breath away. The Pacific Ocean stretches endlessly in front of you, its waves pounding against the rocks. Wind sweeps across the cliffs, carrying the scent of salt and blooming coastal plants. Down below, the skeleton of the Sutro Baths rests quietly. People walk along the concrete edges of what used to be the pools. They stand on the old foundations and stare into the murky water where swimmers once dove. Some visitors sit on the ruins in silence, imagining the bright lights, warm air, and lively crowds that once filled the space. Others bring cameras to capture the dramatic mix of nature and history. It is common for visitors to ask, how was something this huge ever built? And how could something so grand completely disappear? Those questions often lead people to learn about Adolf Sutro, the engineer, entrepreneur, and dreamer who changed San Francisco forever. The baths, even in ruin, have a power that is hard to describe. It's as if the entire site still carries the memory of its past. The cheers from swimming competitions, the clatter of diving boards, the hum of heating pipes, the laughter of families, and the quiet pride of the man who built it all. Even though the glass palace is gone, the echo of its spirit remains, a reflection of San Francisco's soul. The story of the Sutro Baths is much larger than a tale about a swimming complex. It reflects something deeper about San Francisco itself. The baths symbolize ambition, the boldness to dream big, innovation, using engineering to battle nature, community, creating beauty for ordinary people, change, facing challenges and adapting, loss, the disappearance of something once loved, memory, how stories remain even when buildings do not. San Francisco is a city shaped by daring ideas, by people who dream beyond what seems possible. Adolf Sutro embodied that spirit. He built gardens, a magnificent restaurant, a tunnel that saved miners' lives, and a glass palace that welcomed people from all backgrounds. But the city is also a place of constant transformation. Fires, earthquakes, economic hardships, and shifting tastes have erased many historic landmarks. The Sutro Baths became one of these lost giants, a reminder that even the greatest structures can vanish, and yet, in their loss, they gained something new. The ruins became an open-air museum, a place of imagination, a landmark that encourages people to look back in time and wonder about what once stood there, why the ruins still matter. Even though the baths are long gone, people continue to visit because the ruins tell a powerful story. They show what one person's imagination can create. They show how nature eventually reclaims everything. They show how communities change, grow, and move forward. Standing among the ruins, you can hear the waves crash loudly against the rocks, just as they did more than a century ago. If you listen closely, you can almost picture the sound of children splashing, teenagers daring each other on trapezes, and visitors walking along the promenade. You can imagine the warm glow of sunlight shining through the glass roof. You can see the shadows of swimmers diving into the cool saltwater pools. The Sutro baths may be gone, but the memories and images they inspire are still alive. Many people say that walking through the ruins feels like reading a story written in stone. One chapter rising with hope, one filled with triumph, one shadowed by struggle, and one marked by loss. But the final chapter is still being written by every person who visits. Each visitor becomes part of the living memory of the Sutro baths. The final chapter. What the Sutro baths teach us today. The Sutro baths story, from their rise to their fall, is more than just a tale about a magnificent building. It is a story about people, about dreamers, workers, families, and the city that surrounded them. Today, the ruins stand quietly beside the ocean, shaped by over a century of wind and waves. But even in silence, they continue to speak. They remind us that history is not just found in museums or dusty books. Sometimes it sits out in the open, waiting for us to explore it. Visitors walking through the ruins often pause and stare out at the Pacific. Some see only broken, weathered concrete, but others see something more, an echo of joy, laughter, and excitement from long ago. You can almost imagine children running across the walkways, swimmers jumping into the saltwater pools, and the warm glow of the sun shining through the glass roof. The Sutro baths may no longer stand tall, but their message remains powerful. The meaning behind the ruins. What can we learn from the rise and fall of this gigantic glass palace? Quite a lot. 1. Dreams can shape a city. The baths were a result of Adolf Sutro's incredible imagination. He didn't just dream small, he dreamed bigger than anyone thought possible. He brought bold ideas to life and changed the shape and story of San Francisco. One man's creativity transformed a rocky cove into a world-famous landmark. 2. Luxury can be shared. Sutro believed strongly that everyday people deserved access to beauty, culture, and joy. He didn't build the baths for kings, millionaires, or exclusive clubs. He built them for everyone. His low entry fees proved that he cared deeply about creating a community space where rich and poor could come together. 3. Nature always has the last word. Despite all of Sutro's genius, the ocean remained a powerful force. The tides, storms, and weather constantly battled the structure. Nature reminds us that even the strongest human creations cannot last forever. 4. History is fragile. The baths were once filled with thousands of people. They were one of the largest buildings of their time. Yet today, almost nothing remains. This teaches us that even grand achievements can vanish quickly if they aren't protected or maintained. 5. Memories can outlive monuments. Even though the baths are gone, their story still inspires millions of people. Students, tourists, historians, artists, and families continue to learn about the baths and share their legacy. In the end, sometimes memories last longer than stone or steel. What it feels like to stand where history happened. If you visit the Sutro baths today, you'll notice how the ruins blend with the natural landscape. The waves crash loudly, echoing between the remaining walls. Wildflowers bloom along the cliffs. The air smells like salt and wind. Sometimes the fog rolls in, making the ruins look like they're appearing from another world. There is something emotional and strangely peaceful about standing there. You can feel the weight of time. You can sense the lives that once filled the place with energy and movement. You can imagine the cheers during swimming competitions or the music drifting through the air. For many visitors, the baths offer more than a history lesson. They offer reflection. Standing among the ruins reminds people that life is full of change. It helps them appreciate the present moment. It shows how quickly things can rise and fall, and how important it is to protect what matters. A tribute to a dreamer, the legacy of Adolf Sutro. No story of the Sutro Baths is complete without remembering the man behind them, Adolf Sutro. He arrived in America with little money but enormous ambition. He solved mining problems that others thought impossible. He became rich but never forgot ordinary people. He bought land, built gardens, rebuilt the Cliff House, and opened his home to the public. And he created the greatest bathhouse the world had ever seen. His death marked the beginning of the bath's decline, but his vision continues to inspire. The gardens of Sutro Heights, the Cliff House, and the ruins of the baths all carry pieces of his legacy. These places remind people of his belief that beauty belongs to everyone, not just a few. If Sutro were alive today, he would likely be proud that people still visit the ruins, still wonder about his invention, and still appreciate the spirit behind his work. Why the Sutro baths still matter in the modern world. Even though the Sutro baths no longer stand, and even though the giant glass roof shattered decades ago, the site continues to attract thousands of visitors every year. Why? Because the baths represent something timeless. They represent the courage to dream bigger. They represent the beauty of public spaces. They represent the idea that community matters. They represent the struggle to hold on to history. They represent the unstoppable power of nature. In a world where many historic places have been torn down or forgotten, the Sutro baths remind us that stories can survive even when buildings don't. The ruins teach us to value our past and to protect the sites that hold meaning for future generations. The final reflection. As the sun sets over the Pacific Ocean, the ruins of the Sutro baths turn golden in the fading light. Waves crash into the pools, washing over stones that have survived storms, fires, and decades of change. Visitors stand quietly, watching the ocean sparkle. Some take photos, some sit on the rocks and breathe in the salty air. Some listen to the roar of the waves and imagine the sound of splashing water from years ago. It is easy to picture the baths glowing under the glass roof, filled with movement, laughter, and life. It is easy to imagine Adolf Sutro standing proudly on a balcony, watching families enjoy the place he created for them. The baths may be gone, but the feelings they inspired have not disappeared. They live on in the memories of the city, in the stories passed down, and in the people who explore the ruins today. The rise and fall of the Sutro baths teaches us that history is alive. It changes, it breathes, it grows and fades. But as long as someone remembers, as long as someone walks the paths where thousands once walked, the story continues. The ending. The Sutro baths began as a dream built on imagination, engineering, and hope. They rose from a rocky cove to become one of the greatest public attractions in America. They brought joy to thousands. They battled the ocean and survived fires, storms, and economic hardships. And even though they eventually fell into ruin, their spirit lives on. Today, the ruins stand as a reminder that even the most incredible creations can fade, but the dreams behind them never truly vanish. They stay alive in the hearts of those who visit, those who learn, and those who imagine what once was. Standing on the cliffs, looking out over the Pacific, you can almost hear faint echoes of laughter, splashing, music, and joy. And in that moment, you realize something powerful. The Sutro baths may have crumbled, but their story will never be forgotten.